It's no secret that the dragon type is the most powerful type in Yu-Gi-Oh! We've had so many different dragons dominate different formats over the years, like the dragon rules back in 2013 where they could have been tier 0 if it weren't for spellbooks. We also had the guard dragons who can grant advantage to any deck that at least had one dragon in their archetype, as seen with Crusadia. Not just that, but the list keeps going, with cards like Judgment Dragon, Dark Arm Dragon, Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, etc. Though there is one dragon in my opinion, who is the strongest dragon of all time, a dragon who some argued should have never existed in the first place. That dragon is pre-errata Chaos Emperor Dragon-Envoy the End. I bet you 100% that if this dragon was never errated and was never banned, he would always see competitive play. And I'm pretty sure he would see play in Dragon Link today. Anyways, in this video, we're going to be talking about the history of Chaos Emperor Dragon and how he affected future card design. Without any more intros, just sit back and enjoy the show. Chaos Emperor was released in Invasion of Chaos in March of 2004, and he could be used in almost any deck because of how powerful he was. This thing had 3,000 attack points that you could summon easily, as well as erase the entire game state with just 1,000 life points, making this guy a real threat to deal with. Though, the only deck that most people know he was played in during the DM era was the Yugioh deck, which I explained before in my Yada video, but it was because of this deck that Konami ultimately made a ban list, and on August 2004, Chaos Emperor was banned and stayed there until 2015 when he got an errata, which surprisingly, even that saw competitive play in the OCG's Dark Ruler decks. Though no one ever really used his effect, they mainly used him as Xyz material for number 95 Dark Matter Dragon. The reason why this never came to the TCG was because number 1, all the Dragon Rulers got banned early, and number 2, we didn't get the errata of Chaos Emperor until 2018 for some reason. I don't know how relevant it is, but it is something I just wanted to mention. Now, there is something that I do want to say here when it comes to the pre-errata effect. You see, there were two things in Yu-Gi-Oh! That made Chaos Emperor way more powerful than I'm already making him out to be. The first thing was Painful Choice being legal. I kinda mentioned this in my Painful Choice video, but to put into more detail, Painful Choice made summoning Chaos Emperor way easier than Konami expected, because now you don't have to discard or let your monsters die in the field to summon Emperor. You can just activate Painful Choice, send 5 monsters from your deck to the graveyard, including a light and dark monster, and there you go. The fodder needed to summon Emperor Dragon. It was really that easy during the DM era. Heck, I would even say it's easier today. Even though we have cards like Chaos Space, they can't beat the power of Painful Choice. The second thing that made him broken was something very crucial, and it's not a card. It's a rule called Priority. For all my new school players out there, you might not know this, or you're thinking of the Priority that we have today. But what you don't know is that Priority back then was a lot different than the one we have. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh! During the Zexal era, and that's when Priority was removed from the game. So my knowledge of it is only based off the wiki, and I don't know if I'll get it all correct because maybe there's something that the wiki forgot, but I'll try my best to explain this. Anyways, the way Priority worked back then was that ignition effects were allowed to be used the moment the monster is summoned. To put it into context of modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, basically this rule turned ignition effects into somewhat of a mini quick effect during your turn only. Here, let me give you an example with Chaos Emperor. Let's say you have Bottomless Trap Hole set, and it's my turn and I summon Chaos Emperor. Thanks to Priority, I can activate Chaos Emperor's effect right here, right now, before you are even allowed to activate the Bottomless Trap Hole. That's how different Priority was back then. It really made a difference when it came to the power level of cards like Emperor Dragon. To all my old school players, I gotta ask this, but did you guys like this rule or did you guys hate it? Also, did I get this right? Did I explain Priority correctly? Was there something I missed? If there was, please comment down below what I got wrong. Moving on, now that you know how Chaos Emperor was used and what made him broken, let's talk about how he affected card design. After Chaos Emperor was banned, Konami kinda dialed back on monsters that can wipe the board. For a long time, they either made those who could easily be summoned in a way only destroy cards, like with Judgment Dragon, Demise, and Exiton Knight, or any card that did non-mass destruction removal had some ridiculous condition to them. Look at cards like Ocean Dragon Lord Daedalus, Sophia Goddess of Rebirth, and Sky Scourge Neuralaz. In fact, they kind of started making non-destruction removal a bit easier today with cards like Topologic Zero Boros and Divine Arsenal AA Zeus. But you still have to jump through some hoops in order to do it, because nowadays breaking boards is much harder with all these protection negation-like effects, but Konami doesn't want you to do it so easily, which is why they make you put some effort into it. Like with Zeus, you gotta successfully attack with an Xyz monster and use 2 Xyz materials, but back then, most monsters with board breaking effects would only be destroyed or have some huge cost to it if it was non-destruction. Why did they do this? Well, it's because wiping out the entire board can put you in a huge advantage, as seen with cards like Raigeki and Dark Hole, which took no effort to use, but putting mass board wiping effects on a monster is even more dangerous because not only can they beat you up with that monster, but wiping the entire board can make it even more difficult to deal with. This is especially true when Priority was around and how it worked, because the only way you could stop it was if you were able to negate the summon, and the only card that did that at the time was Solemn Judgment, but that had its own downside, so not everyone played it. Also, if you made non-destruction removal, it would bypass any card with destruction protection. In fact, I bet if Chaos Emperor was legal during the 5Ds era, cards like Stardust Dragon and Starlight Road would never see any sort of competitive play because they can't negate Emperor Dragon's effect, since he sends and not destroys. So, to put it in short, Chaos Emperor changed the way Konami designed monsters with the ability to wipe the board, by either making them destroy if they can easily be summoned in a way, or make you jump through some hoops in order to wipe the board, especially if it's non-destruction. Another way he affected card design is with his effect to rip out your opponent's entire hand. He showed Konami that ripping out your opponent's entire hand is way too broken for this game and probably shouldn't exist. In fact, how many cards do we have that can easily be summoned and rip out your opponent's entire hand today? And don't say Gumblar, he doesn't count because he can only rip out 2 cards. We just found ways to rip out more cards with his effect. But I mean in general, how many cards were there that can easily rip out all of your opponent's cards in their hand at once and not give them any sort of compensation like Emperor Dragon did? The answer is none. Any card that can do that today has some ridiculous condition on them, like Sophia and Borbo. Even Emperor Dragon's Retrain doesn't rip cards out of the opponent's hand, and that was probably done on purpose because of how powerful that effect is. Most of the time, cards that can rip out cards from the hand can be a problem. Look at Smoke Grenade and Confiscation. But having a card that rips out all cards, that would probably be emergency ban, which you could argue happened to Chaos Emperor. Even if Yada didn't exist, just being able to rip out all the cards from your opponent's opening hand, especially turn 1, can be game winning. And yes, I know Emperor Dragon also affects your hand and field as well, but with something like Witch and Sangan on the field, you could probably search off their effects to gain the upper hand, maybe a breaker with Witch's effect or something. And to add on to that fact, Emperor Dragon also deals damage based on all the cards, not just your opponent's cards, but your cards too. So either way, you are going to have the upper hand when resolving Emperor Dragon's effect, showing how powerful ripping all the cards from the hand can be in Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is why Konami kinda stopped printing that effect. These 2 changes were all done thanks to Chaos Emperor Dragon, and I do have to ask, how many cards do we have that's on the same power level as Pre-Errata Chaos Emperor? In my personal opinion, not too much, because any card that can blow up the board or rip out cards out of the hand requires some sort of condition, unlike Pre-Errata Chaos Emperor Dragon where you only have to pay 1,000 life points. Which is why to this day, I feel like he is the most powerful dragon in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because this thing had the ability to erase the entire game state. Well, that reaches the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you'll check out my other videos if you want to learn more things, as well as subscribe for more. Have a good day.